Are you feeling overwhelmed and stressed in your development role? If so, you're not alone. This is a real thing many developers feel each and every day. Good news? There are things that can be done to help with these problems. Since I've started my YouTube channel, I had a surprising number of people reach out to me online with questions, just like these. And I took some time and said, what can I do with my 8 years experience to help people? So I thought, and I ended up making a list of over 50 things a developer could do to help. So I wanted to start with the most important ones in this video. And if it helps people, I can make more videos like this. I came up with 4 critical habits you can start today to avoid failure in your development role. Warning, this video moves fast and there's a lot of content. So feel free to pause and rewind in case you missed something. I'm going to put links to everything in the description. Daily habits. What are they? Well, they're the things you're going to do every day at work that you're going to do to improve where you're at. Number 1, find your process for learning. Learning how to learn is the key. It's a weird thing to talk about, but that's what you have to do in development. No matter what task you work on, you won't know it all. So you're going to have to learn as you go. So what is your process that works for you? Here's my process. I'm going to give you an example so you can see what I mean. Say I have to learn scaffold for Kubernetes. This is something I had to do. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is just Google it. Good old-fashioned Googling it. I'm not really going to walk you through how to Google something because that seems like kind of a basic skill. That's my first step. And I can look for the docs, look for anything cool that I just want to read about. Next, with ChatGPT, I can literally say, what is scaffold for Kubernetes? And it gives me a couple paragraphs to summarize what it is, how it works. Plus, I can ask it for example code. Here, I literally say, give me example of scaffold code. And it's going to give me a nice YAML file that shows me what kind of configuration files look like. And then it also gave me a couple more paragraphs about that example code to really help me understand different parts of it. I didn't realize this until recently, but there are things called quick starts. You see here in the scaffold one, it's going to show you how to install scaffold, Kubernetes, Minikube, so that you can start running it locally. It's going to show you how to pull the code down, and it's going to show you some commands that you can run locally so that you can see this in action. You can get the feel for the code. You can get the feel for how it works. And finally, one thing that I always like when you're done, congratulates you. Lets you know that you've done the first part to understand how it works. And usually there's some sort of what's next. So after you've done the bare bones minimum, you can start digging into a little bit more complicated concepts to learn the skill further. And I love YouTube, as you can tell. And one way that I learned is I like to actually just see somebody do it. That's a big thing. I can see them do it, then I can replicate it. YouTube's perfect for that, and there's so much content out there. Here we have DevOps Toolkit. He made a great video on scaffold, how to build and deploy in Kubernetes. So I, on my desktop, can put this on, and I can follow along, and so that I can then do everything that he does, and I can see it in action. I can troubleshoot along with him, and here at the end we see the nice output of what it should look like when it's finished. The other cool thing is always look down in the description for a lot of these videos. So you see here, he actually put a GitHub with all the commands that he used for some of his scripts. Great, so now you can actually hop in there and you can see what everything looks like. Plus, this leads you back to his GitHub, which is where he has all the code that he performed in this. So now I have a chance to be able to go through and examine his code, look at that example, and see how it actually fits in the real world. So here's my final checklist. Adjust yours accordingly. I Google it, ask ChatGPT, I try to find a quick start so I can practice, I do a walkthrough on a video, and heck, if I can look at example code both in that Git repository that I showed, or maybe in my company's code base, they might have examples so I can walk that through. But figure out your process. It's going to help you tremendously if you get good at learning. Number 2, ask lots of questions about tasks to leads, senior devs, and PMs. Now at first you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to look like such a fool because I have to ask all these questions. I should just know. No, you need to have a clear understanding of the requirements. And I swear to God, if you want to waste time, start writing code without a clear end goal. But if there are things you don't know for your task, then ask questions until you are sure. 15 minutes of quote-unquote annoying questions can save hours of rework. I want to give some examples. What type of questions should you be asking? And here's a great book that can help you with that. Lean Software Systems Engineering for Developers. Doug Durham, Chad Michaels wrote it. Great. I did an interview with Chad. Book itself is phenomenal and packed full of questions. But here's one that I find that helps me a lot. Do we have something like this already in our system? The number of times I've asked this and someone goes, oh yeah, go check over here, was able to give me reference, be able to know how it's used in our system, how it's correctly set up, what's part of our coding standards. So then when I go to implement it, I have a great starting point. How about this? What does the final outcome look like? A lot of times you'll get a task without mockups, without clear requirements. And you need to know what is the final outcome? What is this like? What is the goal of this task? Are there assumptions that you're making? And if so, clear them up. Because like one common thing you could be thinking is, I think we need to store this data in the database. Is that correct? That's just an assumption you made. What about this? Can the user wait for the request to finish, or should it be asynchronous? A lot of times these aren't laid out perfectly in the requirements. So take the time, ask, think, are you making these assumptions? And the good old fashioned why. Kind of sounds annoying, kind of sounds like a 3-year-old, but a lot of times when you have a requirement, you go, why are we doing it this way? Why should we do it like that? These help clarify it so you can better understand your task and you can do it right the first time. And always do all this with a professional tone. Sometimes it can come across as snarky. The best developers ask lots of questions. So don't hesitate to ask a lot of questions yourself. You're the one that has to do the task. You're the one that has to deliver this. So make sure you understand what you're doing. Number 3, when in doubt, draw it out. I'm a visual learner. Big shocker, right? Someone that has a YouTube channel and expresses themselves through video, which I'm sure you're subscribed to this channel, by the way. I like to see visuals. I like to see pictures. I like to see lines drawn between things to help me understand how they all play together, right? How can you do this quickly? Well, first thing you can do, pick a tool. Miro's fantastic. Google Slides, that's what I'm using for this. Heck, even MS Paint. Anything where you can draw lines and you can draw representations of systems that you're comfortable with. Take what's in your head, put it on the screen. Now this is a fantastic exercise anyway that forces you to see how the parts come together. So let's do an example. We have our cat API. The HTTP endpoint, I believe we use Azure Functions for this for our get cats call. Then in my head I go, I have to have some sort of class behind the scenes to process the request for this. Well, I want to make sure to check the cat cache first to see if I have the cat that I need. And finally, if it's not there, I'm going to go to the SQL Server database and get the cat I need, okay? So this is what I have in my head. This is my assumption. This is what I think it's supposed to look like. And you know what I can do? Make this picture, go to one of my colleagues, go to someone on my team and say, does this look right? You know how many times this is going to save you problems? So here's what we just made. And we go to the person who says, does it look right? They say, actually, for that particular request, that's an Azure Blob Storage. That's where we keep it. So you're going to want to make that call there. So you've saved yourself a ton of time in just a couple minutes of drawing it out, getting clear communication and talking to someone from rather going in the code, building it and going, then someone later on in pull request time says, no, it goes over here. Now there's no surprises. You know exactly what to do. Then later on, if there is a problem, you can say, well, during the planning stages, we went through this. It's okay, we can make the change, but we did our due diligence early. Number 4, a tool for quick feedback loops. Well, a lot of coding is trial and error. I'm sorry to show this secret to the world, but that's what it is. And so you need to be able to test something fast, then keep trying stuff quickly until it works. You don't want to have to run your app each time to see it in the UI. I've done that before. Some would say it's a waste of time. Others would say an incredible waste of time. This is where you need the right tool for the job. So let's go through some tools for different parts of your development process. One I love is CodePen. I'm not an expert on the front end, but anytime I do have to do something, this is where I like to do it. I don't have to run stuff in an IDE. Instead, I can drop the pieces I want in here and I can see it immediately rendered. So like up here, here's our HTML. We see it right there in the browser with us. What we can do is we can go in there, real time, change that, and now we can see it under here. Same applies to CSS and JavaScript. No more having to build, no more having to clear your caches. Gives you those crazy fast feedback loops, and that's what we're looking for with this. Seconds, not minutes. Next, SQL. A great tool for that is SQL Fiddle. We see it right here. Again, runs in the browser. There's a little bit of upfront work because you do have to build your schema, insert data, do all those other things. But what's really cool then is on this other panel here, you can run your SQL queries. I don't have it highlighted, but up in the top, you can also select what type of engine you want to use. MySQL, you want to use Postgres, whatever. And then at the bottom down here, you get your results. So it's all in a UI. You don't actually have to go build a database or anything. You can do it right here, and you can do it for free. How about object-oriented languages? In our example here, we're going to use C#. And my tool for years for quick feedback loops has always been LinkPad. There's a free version, there's a paid version. Either one is fantastic. Let's do an example. What do I mean? Tiny changes that take time. Say for whatever reason, you want to format a date-time string for your application, right? This is what normal humans in the United States would do. Say for whatever reason, your PM goes, well, we want to have actually the day first, then the month, then the year, but only in 2 formats. And then we just want to show hour, minute, but we don't want to show AM, PM. And you're like, okay, that's easy. What we can do is we can jump here into LinkPad. We can do date time now. That's what it's going to look like, right? But that's not correct. So how can we fix that? We can do a super fast, quick Google search, C# date time to string format. One of my favorite websites, C# Corner. We go in here. Just look at this, right? Super easy, barely inconvenience. What we can do is we can filter that list down, and we can find something that's very close to what we want to do. We can put it in our tool. We can put it right there, and we can see our date time format is now super close to what we want. It's not perfect, but it's close. And now we can just iterate really fast. Okay, we got the pieces. Let's change it up. Let's change it to the string we want. Oh, now our format is perfect. So now we just know. The whole thing was done in 45 seconds, and now I know the format's correct, right? I can add that code to my application, and I'm on to the next task. Last point on this one, you could do this with a unit test as well. So it doesn't have to be an external tool. If you have a fast testing solution here, I just had ChatGPT write me a C# test to do this. Pumps out the test, copy code, put it in there. So there's a lot of ways to do this, but I suggest you find the one that you're comfortable with, how you can iterate for your framework for the tools that you're using. Fun news. If you want to learn all the skills that allowed me to go from a part-time QA analyst making $15 an hour, a senior software engineer who's worked at 2 different companies, I'll run through some of the skills that made me successful, technical planning, streamlining your dev work environment, improve project visibility. So I just launched my newsletter that's going to cover all those. It's on Substack. You can go to cloudguychris.substack.com, sign up for my newsletter. Why not? It's free to join. So just try that. If you got questions, feel free to just message me. I'm on LinkedIn. Hop on there, connect with me, send me messages. I'll try my best to answer your questions. For whatever reason lately, I've gotten a lot of messages on Reddit, so here is my Reddit handle. Feel free to message me on there too. Thank you for watching. I appreciate this, and I really hope this was helpful to you.